Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. What an exciting show I have for you, because my guest today is going to really give you a little bit of tantalizing mind effect. Well, let me tell you why. My guest today is a Air Force veteran and an award-winning special effects expert. Not only that, he's an author. Let me tell you too a little bit about his special effects business. Escape Design FX is something that he has done for a long time, and it is in the independent film industry. Not only that, let me tell you a little bit about what he's done while he kind of shifted away from that a little bit with that in 2014. He went and spent 7 out of 8 episodes on Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge. But he's doing even more than that now, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that and a book that he's going to share with you. And you know, I like to inspire you and get you to making healthy decisions and moving forward in your life. So there's a lot of things that are going to make your mind become a little bit more interested in what's going on outside of your normal today's world. Welcome to the show, Russ Adams. Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
I am really excited about the things that you've got going. First, I want to say thank you so much for your service.
Oh, thank you. You probably had as much fun as I did.
I got to tell you, actually, I should say "oorah," but I know that that's a little bit different for you. But I also am really excited because you're an award-winning special effects artist and designer, and even more. But you are amazing at what you do, and even with you right now, you have some designs.
I do. I've got some critters behind me that some of them were bucket list. The other one is for a new project we're working on. It's I loved my job, and now I've kind of stepped away from it for a little bit. But these are some of the guys we've got. I call them torso masks. They're really, really big. They kind of sit on your shoulders and make you like 2 feet taller. And, you know, everyone sort of gravitates their eye view to the creature. So they don't even realize that that's not your head up there. So, you know, it's, yeah.
Well, you know what, Russ, it takes a lot of creativity to do what you do, not only to think about what this is going to be, but then to actually take your hands and create it and put it into something solid or kind of even moving, because I think you have things that are fluid as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, animatronic creatures and things like that, yeah.
How do you do this? How did this start for you?
To start, oh my God. So I like to tell the story about when I was little. I watched an episode of Mr. Rogers, and he's always talking about, you know, creativity and, you know, how things are, what was he saying? Oh, pretend. He wants, you know, so kids aren't scared about some of the things they see or enjoying the pretend world and stuff. And so he went behind the scenes of The Incredible Hulk, which Lou Ferrigno was the star of at that, and Bill Bixby at that time. And they transformed the Hulk into, well, Lou Ferrigno into the Hulk with makeup effects and, you know, messing with his hair and stuff. And I was like hooked from that point on. And so it was all I wanted to do. Yeah, and so I would pick apart, you know, the pictures that I saw in like Fangoria magazine and whatever, you know, you could find at the comic book store or whatever to see how things might have gone together, and probably tens of thousands of dollars of trial and error, and I was able to finally, get to this point.
So this is pretty interesting because, you know, a lot of children at home start using different things from Tinker toys to erector sets to different things, and then they're, you know, taking old Pringle boxes and putting it over and adding water to it and flour and salt and all of these things and trying to create something, and then trying to get even to where you are at now. How did you end up creating your own independent film company and being a special effects, an award-winning special effects artist?
It took time. You know, at first, I had gotten to the point where I felt that I was comfortable creating things, and that I had produced some work that was catching attention, and at that point, I decided that, you know, I wanted to do this for a living. I had just left the military. I had given up a full ride scholarship to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh because
Oh my goodness.
oh yeah, my grandfather was like, yo, you're gonna end up with like a, you know, a needle in your arm and in a ditch because that's where artists end up, you know. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
like scared me to death, and he convinced me, because my whole family's military, convinced me to go into the service, and so I did, and I actually loved it. But when I got out, I was like, you know, I think it's my turn to do my thing, and so I started working on some projects. I would catch some people's attention, but my problem was I was married and I had two children. I couldn't just uproot everybody and move to LA for work. So I got involved in the independent film business in the state of Utah, and slowly started working on projects. My first big project was 51st Dates. I did some live casting stuff for that. And then I moved up to, you know, some more independent work, and then ended up working on Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, and then, you know, a couple of Danny Trejo films. It just sort of like just kept going. And then I picked up the Jim Henson Show. So I had started my own company to do all those things because I didn't have, the ability to do it, on location, and moving my whole family. So, you know, that was kind of, it's scary because you're in charge of everything, and you really can't do it part-time because the business, side of it is incredibly daunting. And if you're an artist,
Yes.
most artists aren't good at business, and I certainly wasn't. So, you know, I had to really force myself into learning that trade. But and very few artists, special effects artists, have their own shop. Most of them do what we call the bounce. They catch like a wave of movies that are going through Hollywood. They're there for anywhere from like 2 weeks to 2 months, but usually no more than that. And then they go to the next film. So they just sort of bounce from shop to shop, and
I see.
they're independent contractors. So that's
Interesting.
how it's done.
But that just means you're known because you're going to be the go-to guy. They know that they can just go straight to you. This can be done, and it's in your shop, ready to rock and roll. They can go straight to you.
Yeah. And we've had some friends of mine from Face Off working in the shop, and you know, it sucks because they're always contacting me. Those that know me are contacting me for gigs. Hey, what do you got coming up? What do you got coming up? And they never think to reciprocate. You know, like, hey, yes. I might need a gig. You know, I mean, somebody throw a bone my way. You know, but yeah. So they'll call and they'll ask for, you know, like gigs. And if I've got something, I will totally take on the help, especially if I know that they're at my level or above. Certainly if they're above, you know, and yeah. But we've had some weird gigs. I brought a couple of people on projects, just commercial projects. We did this really cool commercial for the Wildlife Foundation of Colorado, and it was called Hug the Hunter Program. And, so we had to create an animatronic deer, two of them, one that was puppeted at a close-up, the other one was a full deer that they could puppet from a distance. And it was great because they were like the Wile E. Coyote and the sheepdog from
I love it.
From those cartoons back on the WB, and they were enemies throughout the day, but they take their lunch breaks together and talk like they were old friends. And that's kind of the way the Hug the Hunter thing went. They were the deer hunter and the deer were friends, and they were on their coffee break talking about it. Was ridiculous.
That's pretty funny. Well, so let me ask you though. Okay, so as you're telling me this, I'm thinking, so where do all of these creatures go? Do you end up putting them in a museum? Do they stay in some set in Hollywood? Are they kind of what happens to the creatures?
When possible, we'll put in the contract that if they don't have a purpose for it after the fact, then we'll take it back and store it, or put it on display or whatever. But for the most part, Hollywood doesn't have a lot of respect for props, and they will just drop them into the trash. And
You're kidding.
oh, it's just like the show, Jim Henson Creature Shop Challenge. They had, I think there was 30 some creatures that we had built over the entire season. And they were about to put them all in the garbage. And I just happened to be lucky enough to be in LA. And the guy who won the show, Bobby, he mentioned, hey, listen, all the creatures are down at the creature shop and they're about to go in the trash. If you want some of yours, come down and get them. And, I didn't budget for shipping because I was there on vacation. So I went running down to pick up, I think we got 3 creatures. We had them, Yvonne Escato from the show had a friend that helped us get them bubble wrapped and shipped. And I had them shipped ahead of me to my studio. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, pretty much cost me everything I had for the, for the show. Cause we were doing Son of Monster Palooza. And it was chaos, but yeah, they're going to throw everything. So I'm assuming everything else got thrown in the trash if you weren't there.
I can just, envision something like the wax museums that they have up where there would be something like your props.
Oh yeah.
All your creatures somewhere because they're in movies. These are iconic.
Yeah, well, when you even look back to Jaws, the 3 sharks they built for Jaws ended up in a dump, and they
I can't believe this.
Rescued, but yeah, it's exactly it. But they ended up in a garbage heap, and a fan rescued them, and I think actually one of the people on one of the films had actually found one and rescued it. But
these kind of things, when you hear about it, that people are picking things out of the trash and selling them for major amounts of money on some auction site, and gosh, they could be displayed in a museum. People do this all the time with other things that are, a piece of clothing or.
Yeah, so we try to recapture it, but sometimes, like for instance, the Hug the Hunter program, those guys wanted to display that at the Wildlife Foundation.
That's neat.
I believe that those are still kicking around. But some of the stuff that you create, we sent out another deer. I got stuck. There was one summer where I made a lot of deer, and and it was supposed to have been hit by a car, so it had to be puppeted from underneath this car. And it was an Italian film that was being shot in southern Utah, and called Monolith. And it was a really cool premise for a film. I don't think it's been released yet, but they were asking about the deer and stuff. And I asked them, hey, listen, if you're not going to want the creature afterwards, and they're like, oh no, we want it. And then I found out that they couldn't afford to ship it back, and they just trashed it. And it was just like, God,
oh man,
in the garbage.
So typically, how long and I know this is going to depend on size and things like that, but what time frame does it take to create a creature?
We never have the time that we need to create it. So I'll leave with that. So for instance, the deer that we had created, I think we had less than a month to create those. And that
wow.
Yeah, that would do all the research on how a deer moves, and then how we might puppet it, how we'd put it, how we'd build out the understructure to be able to puppet it, and then cover it with foam for muscle and all kinds of stuff. And then get it to the set so it looks realistic. Paint it where it needed to be painted. Yeah. And, that would have normally been a good 2 months worth of work, and I think we had less than a month to do it. We had built like a robot for what was it? It was a Danny Trejo movie called Juarez 2045, and we had 20 some odd days to build what was equivalent to about 26 separate types of props. One of them was a 9-foot android that had to be articulated. And it was like everything was articulated down to the fingers, so that because we thought they were going to do like a stop motion thing with it, but in real life it was like with the leg chassis and everything, it was about 9 feet tall. And,
oh my goodness! Yeah,
and it was just we had less than 20 days to do that. Grenades, what we called combat glass, the military gear. It was just, and basically I had no one that I could hire. So I was doing all this by myself. So it was, it was insane. It was like,
that's pretty amazing. And even to know what to use for the substances to use to really make the things very effective. I mean, just this is amazing. What are you involved with right at the moment?
Actually, we've put Escape Design Effects, my special effects company, to sleep for the last year and a half. So for the last 2 years, we've been working on a Comic-Con that we're bringing to Ogden. So it's a pop culture convention. It covers all aspects of pop culture. And, you know, we worked really closely with the city to make sure that they were on board with it. And in some cases, the county, we're using a bunch of county facilities to be able to put it together. And we are now 26 days out from that 2 years ago when we started. And
Wow.
yeah, it's, yeah. I would like
It's a big deal.
that I'm like way confident, but you know, this is, it's a scary industry. So, you know, I try not to get too cocky about things, because that's usually when I get kicked in the stomach. So I'm just gonna say we're holding on.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so this is a big deal, and you have some things that you're going to be sharing at the event as well. Something that you've authored.
Something at the event that I've authored. Are you talking about the books?
Yes, it's sitting on your desk.
It's sitting on my desk. Actually, the thing about the event is, as an event runner, the only thing that I'm going to have time to do is run around like an idiot trying to make sure that everything runs well. Unfortunately, I won't have anything displayed of my own stuff. People asked me if I was going to be a guest at my own convention, and it's just, no, I will be working like for 3 days straight, probably a week up until.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wish I could print my own book. We've got these little creatures we call Bitty Bigfoots. They're a small version of him.
Okay.
We wanted to sell them there, but we got no way to sell them because all my team is volunteered to help with the. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about that right now. Can you share that with the audience, what you've got going on in the background?
So these are just bucket list projects on occasion in between, you know, films and commercials and stuff. You tend to have, you need to fill your time or else you go crazy. So I have a list of bucket list of things that I always wanted to create. So a Bigfoot was one.
How neat is that?
Yeah, we actually got to, so I think Dollywood has a version of him. He's a creature they call Stomp, and he kind of like, so they liked our design and asked if they could utilize it for a mascot, and we did that a couple of years ago. So he's been kicking around a while. We make copies of him all the time. I think that one was like blonde, and this guy's all grayed out and stuff. We've done like a solid black and all kinds of stuff. So it's just a fun project. And then behind me over in here is the Killer Croc, and he was one of the DC comic characters. I wasn't really thrilled with the way they portrayed him in Suicide Squad, so I decided to create him myself the way he should look.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So, and then this fellow over here, essentially we created him as a costume for the Comic-Con, for Ogden Uncon. And we were trying to figure out who we were going to put in it. Well, we actually built this one for the mayor of the city. So yeah, you know, so he's the first, as far as I know, he is the first cosplaying mayor in the United States, as far as I know. So this
is so much fun. I mean,
yeah.
You've got some ideas, and you're bringing things to the table that hasn't been done, and this is really exciting. I am really excited to share a lot of the things that you are currently doing with our viewers, and some things that you're going to have coming in the future. So for the moment, I do want to share with the viewers your book and a couple of the other things that you have and how they can get in contact with you to learn more about what you've got going, to go to your event, and also to get copies of your book and the other ones that you have, because you have 3 other ones in addition to what you're going to show the audience today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the book I wrote an expose, a tell-all about what happened behind the scenes of the Jim Henson Creature Shop Challenge. And I think people already realize that when, you know, reality shows are on, you know that there's an element to it that's not completely on the up and up. And so I think you watch it with a bit of skepticism, but what I don't think they realize is just how unbelievably, insane, and it is behind the scenes. Now,
Uh-huh.
building all the creatures was 100%. We had less than, in some cases 2 to 3 days, but that was translated into about 10 hours a day for 2 or 3 days to build these things
Wow.
under intense pressure, no ability to, research and develop a project before you were actually able. You were just, once you were given the stuff, you were on it. And big creatures, like I think our final creature was with Bobby and Yvonne. We created this Russian gorilla-looking creature, and it was 8 feet tall. We had a guy inside of it. I was running the animatronics from off the set. Sometimes, like right behind the bar, I'm laying down, looking at a screen, crouched down in this little bar.
Oh my gosh!
And there was like a puppeted element to it. It was insane, and we literally built that in 3 days. So, it was, no time to develop it. But as you went on, it got a little easier because you're kind of
Okay.
But some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes that I don't think people would believe was like our living conditions. We were living in Studio City. It was in an affluent neighborhood, and it was a mansion, but the mansion had been abandoned for a long period of time, or better yet, not lived in for a period of time, to the point where there were roots growing into the to the plumbing, and like you couldn't use the circuit breakers were bad. So if you were cooking, and using the microwave, it would trip the breaker. So we always had to have somebody manning the breaker while we were working in the kitchen on almost anything. Every time we used the stove, the smoke alarm would go off, and it wasn't like a normal smoke alarm. It would just start screaming, fire, evacuate, fire, evacuate. It became so normal that we had these fans, like cardboard, just trying to blow smoke out of the windows so that we could actually make something to eat, for everybody. But it was bad. The shower, the toilet would back into the shower in the house, So the ladies are taking a shower, and all of a sudden there's this stuff backing up into it. It was insane. We had an in-ground pool, but it had like these, when we first got there, there's these 2 dead rats that I make jokes about, suicide rats, that were in the pool. It was
Gosh.
It was the most ghetto cast house I think I've ever seen. But yeah,
Oh gosh. Okay.
Nobody does stuff like that. So
you share all this in your book.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a copy of it there you can hold up?
I think I do. Yeah, so it's called Surviving Reality. This is not that show.
I love it.
A loaded title. Surviving Reality was just fun. I just sort of came up with that one, and the publisher liked it. That This Is Not That Show. We had this snide little British, I'm trying not to swear, producer who also produced Project Runway, and he had this chip shoulder. Like he was terrified of Face Off, which was our sister show on SyFy, and so is a brand new show. So we would ask him questions like, are we going to be doing this like they do on Face Off, or are we going to do it like this? And all he had to say was, "This is not that show. This is not that show." This tiny person who got smaller and smaller every time he whined about something. It was just
ouch.
Yeah. It was that was just my little dig at him. But
I love it. Well, you have 3 other books as well.
Uh-huh.
And do you want to mention those, or shall we just send the audience to? Yeah.
I do a series of books called A Workshop with Russ Adams. There's a latex mask making workshop. There is a creature fur and hair where I talk about, a lot of people don't know, this isn't like fur that was cut and then, put onto a creature. Each one of those hairs was put in one at a time with a needle. And so I teach how to do that, how to make your own tool to do that, how to work with fur on a bolt, that way you know how to work with that. And then flocking methods that kind of like, it's the soft velvet stuff that's usually under tchotchkes and stuff, so it doesn't scratch the surface of something, but you can use that for long versions of it as fur. So different methods.
I love it.
And then the last one was shrunken heads. So I even go into a little detail of how it was actually done, in the Amazon, and so warning,
This is pretty neat. So how can the audience get copies of your book and find out about the upcoming event that you have?
Okay, I'm going to hold for just a second for, believe it or not, I'm in a rather soundproof area, but I'm in my studio.
That just tells me that people need to be on alert for what you have coming.
And I'll take it. Yeah, there's, so you got, they can get copies of my book on Amazon. I think there's also right now there's an ebook version of Surviving Reality, and we're working on an audiobook. I feel like as the author of a book, and as you would know, I think your voice as the author is sometimes the best to do those audiobooks.
Yes.
My problem is I know what I've written and I don't necessarily read it. And so sometimes that script will have to bring me back on.
I know that. I know.
So the audiobooks taking a while,
Oh, that's so funny. And any other websites you want to direct them to?
We could definitely check out ogdenuncon.com. So that's what is it? What is it? OGNUNCON.com. Sometimes people have a problem with the word Ogden. They're not sure how to spell it, but and then Escape Design Effects is the letter Escape Design with the letters FX at the end. .com is my special effects company, and you can see some of the stuff that what we had worked on. Nothing new yet.
And you can see some of your work at syfy.com/creature shop, and there's 7 of the 8 episodes there. So there's a lot of information that we can find out about you, follow you, and stay on board, because I think what your imagination, it inspires creativity in other people, and this is something that in our world right now we really need, is to bring back our imagination. Like what happened when you were with Mr. Rogers watching and you developed yours. We forget that, and especially as adults, we lose that. We feel like we have to be in this box where every day we get up and we do certain things because we're adults. And we're no longer allowed to have fun. But part of the thing about moving forward and making progress in our lives is being able to use our imagination, having fun with our lives. And so I want to thank you so much for being on our show today to inspire people. And I really want to encourage them to follow you and attend the event, as well as get a copy of some of your books.
Oh, yeah. The copy of the books would be great. I would love everyone to come out to Ogden Uncon.
I think so too.
But cool.
All right. So Ogden Uncon it is in just 26 days from now, and we want to invite you to that, as well as invite you to encourage your friends, your family, coworkers, people you don't know, everybody on social media, not only to attend Ogden Uncon, but get a copy of Russ Adams' books, as well as follow him on social media, go to the websites, and check this out. Open up your imagination.
Definitely.
Yes, and tantalize your mind. We don't do this often enough. Thank you, Russ, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. Well, I've got to tell you, what a delight this episode is going to be. Well, why? I know we have spoke about finances before, but have we talked really in depth about what it is in reference to credit cards and the younger generation? Do we get credit cards for them? How do they know what to do when they use them? What about debt? How do they pay for them? Well, today with me, I have a guest who is an expert in a lot of areas when it comes to finances. But we're going to talk really in depth about specific things when it comes to the younger generation and credit cards. Well, he is a senior advisor and founding partner with Ark Financial Group. And yes, I've got to tell you, Texas is big when it comes to knowing about finances. You've heard all for many years about, oh, big oil and lots of millionaires coming out of Texas. Well, you got to know about finances to make things happen, right? And so this is a boutique financial planning firm, and they specialize in business and personal financing. So financial planning. And so this is really important because, well, how do you move ahead if you don't know where you stand or have a goal in where to make the direction flow? This is really important because the word flow is also really important in finances. There's a lot of things to learn about when it comes to finances, but it's really important to have somebody who's an expert in the field. And my guest today has really an extensive experience in this area, very intricate solutions to problems that pop up that sometimes we don't necessarily think about. And really, we need solutions. We don't want to face challenges that come up or even just, I don't know, little bumps along the road that could turn into major hurdles. So if we have someone that's guiding us and mentoring us and really has the expertise in the areas that we need, even just little things can really make a difference in the direction that we go. With me today is Jeff Socha. Again, he's from Ark Financial Group. He's got a huge expertise and resume in this area. I'm going to let him share a lot of that information with you because who is better about sharing their background than the person who has it? So with me today, I welcome Jeff Socha. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited because your background is absolutely huge. You are involved in so many things from political things, but all of this connects. And I really want you to describe your background because it's so extensive, but it is so in-depth and so important. It's not just about, okay, let me take today's family and put their individual planning into fruition and let that flow, because it extends. It's a ripple effect that, like we talked about, goes on into bigger things that actually turn around, come back, and affect the individual. And so I want you to share a little bit about your background before we go into some of this major stuff.
Sure. So our approach to financial planning and financial consulting is really from a problem solving, almost engineering base. So I just think about engineering as what are the variables, what are the resources we have, what are we trying to accomplish, and then let's engineer that solution. And in our world, there's such a lack of education and knowledge just across the board that people don't know where to start to put that solution together. And so finding great help is key to that success.
I have to agree with you because oftentimes we look at something and are really unclear on the right direction to go. And if we have a solution and somebody that knows what they're doing that can offer even options that are right for me or right for that particular individual, which is something that you do because you look at the individual and look at what is the profitability for that specific client. And I think that that's really important because oftentimes there's big companies that just are looking at, okay, let me get my numbers. And it's not about that. Your company is really specific. You really want to help the individual in the direction that they want to go.
Yeah, that's if it's not purpose driven, then why are you doing it?
Mm-hmm. So, and the thing is with your background too, you're a graduate of Texas A&M. And so you've taken a lot of time in your background. I don't know how exactly in your younger years that you decided that this was the area that you wanted to pursue.
Well, so I hired my first financial advisor when I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family-owned construction company. I was working as far back as I can remember and, earning an income for the hours I was putting in. And as I started to save, I remember I was about 15 years old and already saved up thousands of dollars. And I remember telling my dad, hey, do you have a financial advisor? I need somebody to come over and help me figure out what do I do with this? And so financial advisor came over, and I think it just all got started from there.
I so love it. I really do, because oftentimes we don't think that the younger generation thinks about money. And
Yeah.
here you were at 15 years old, already acquiring wealth, and then thinking about, okay, what do I do with this so that I don't lose this money, but I can benefit long term from this? And I need to talk to somebody about the best steps to take to do so. This is pretty neat.
Well, it's not just the younger people that aren't thinking about it. I think if we look around, we can find plenty of people at all ages and at all levels in this country that aren't giving it the time and attention it deserves.
Well, let me ask you too, your degree in finance and engineering, that you would think that these are two areas that are so far off the spectrum, but you've integrated these two in what you do now.
Yeah, I'm really good at engineering, but I'm a lot more passionate about finance. So when you bring an engineering approach to solving financial problems, or just solving the problem of how to attain or reach your financial goals, then you're going to have a much better outcome than just what happens, unfortunately, in most of the industry, which is you have a bunch of people running around saying they're financial advisors, and they're not qualified to be financial advisors. So they're out there pitching you and selling you, and they're just out there going, how can I get more of your money into some financial product, some investment portfolio, some insurance product, which isn't necessarily bad. It's not inherently bad. But if it's absent of a plan, if it's absent of a purpose, then why are you doing it?
I think that that's a really good point, because there's a lot of companies out there that are taking people and saying, hey, we can put you through this quick program and then go out and find a whole bunch of your friends and family and sign them up. And it may be a starting point for some people to look at their finances, but they really need somebody who has a background in this that knows what they're doing, because you can really take the wrong steps and the direction that you go doesn't lead you where you need to be in the long term. And so, like you said, I mean, it can be an eye opener, and you can start thinking, okay, well, now I really need to be thinking about this. But you have something that has become nationally recognized. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
I'm not sure what specifically you're talking about that's been nationally recognized, but we're definitely starting to get a lot more recognition around the country. We're getting a lot more press. We're getting invited onto shows like this to talk about what we do and why it's different. It's unfortunate that in today's business world, and even with all of the information available, that in this industry, just transparency and honesty can be a differentiator. So sometimes I think the work that we're doing, there's not some magic silver bullet or some secret sauce. It's really just about being honest and transparent and going, how can we help these clients get what they want? This is not a new principle, right? Help other people get what they want in life, and you'll get everything you want out of life.
I so love it. I so love it. I want to talk too a little bit about the credit card issue and a little bit about debt when it comes to credit cards. And so maybe you can share a little bit about that, especially when it comes to the younger generation.
Sure. So I think debt is an important tool when used correctly. Debt is also a financial tool that can really hurt you. In 2008, most of the people that were hurt because of how they used debt in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
These businesses that were hurt because of how they managed debt in their business. You know, our country has a challenge with debt but they also have this unique opportunity in that they can just print more money. So they can,
that's true.
whereas those of us who operate in the real world, debt can hurt us or it can help us. So it's important that we know how to use it responsibly and know how to be a good steward if we're going to use it. So just like we were talking earlier about learning and finances as children or at a younger age, what's clear to me that younger people are not being educated on finance is just look at the debt with student loans. Okay?
Okay.
You're going to take out a loan of say $100,000 or $200,000 of debt, and you're going to do that so that you can get a job that pays say $40,000 a year coming out of college. There's a lot of where you could go earn $40,000 coming right out of a trade school and be debt free. And so now you've got this ball and chain tied to you that's strapped to you, holding you down, preventing you from progressing because you borrowed against your future. And now the earnings that you're making are all going to pay for that decision in the past. And so when you think about your kids and should I get them a credit card, it's not necessarily just about, like we were saying earlier, whether it's, more convenient than giving them cash for lunch money. It's a tool that you should be teaching your children how this can help them and how it can also hurt them. So they need to understand where the money came from. You should review the bill with them. They should see that it has to get paid. They really need to understand how everything's connected so that they can make better decisions in the future about, do I really need this enough to borrow against my future and put myself in debt?
Well, that's a really good point. And I think one thing, having been a parent that has gone through this where my child has gone into adulthood, another thing is to teach them the responsibility that comes with it, not just giving them the money and showing them, but having them be accountable for some of the earnings in this so that there's some type of value placement in that and understand that, okay, I had to work X amount of hours for this amount of dollars. And now what is this going to entail with where it goes? And oftentimes, I know that when I, as a young mother, we wanted to provide for our children because of the amount of work that we had to go through, and we didn't want to see them have to do this. And so we were a little bit more lax. And so the younger generation really didn't have to do as much. And I think that society is seeing some challenges in this arena because when you look at education now, some of the education systems across the nation are not teaching maybe in-depth finances and some of the tools. So this really needs to go back to the parents where we are teaching our children how to deal with finances. And much like you, we can say, let's go to a financial expert too, and let's talk about the credit card, or let's talk about this and see how much in savings and what you need to do to get where you want to go. Hey, what kind of car do you want? And some of them will say, I'd like to drive a BMW or Mercedes Benz or whatever. I mean, you dream big when you're young. Yeah. And so not all families come from a position where they can provide that for their child. And so either the parent has to work an extra job or the child has to do something so that they can pursue that dream and fulfill it. And I think that this is a great opportunity with what you bring to the table. And it brings a new approach, a new perspective where actually our younger generation can begin to fulfill these goals and acquire a sense of responsibility and direction that I think we've kind of in some ways missed the boat on. But there's more to what you have to say because this goes all the way up the chain, the food chain, if you will, into the finances as a whole of our nation.
That's right. And you hit on something that's really important there. You talked about kind of the value of a dollar and connecting hard work and earning a dollar to being able to pay that credit card bill, and recognizing that when you swipe that, connecting that back to the effort you had to put in to earn the money so that you can pay that bill later. And this is an evolution just in our financial system. You know, if we could go all the way back to bartering, right? Like,
Oh, yes.
I grew some crops. Well, I know how hard it was to grow these crops, and you are raising livestock, and we're going to make an exchange. We both know how hard it was. And when we see that fruit of our labor that we're exchanging, it's really challenging. Well, so then we move on to a currency system, right? And you had that physical, tangible nature of cash. Hey, Rebecca, look, I'm giving you this cash, and I know what I had to do to get the cash. So by physically giving it away, it stirs up a certain level of emotion and brain activity, really.
Yes.
Then we move to checkbooks, right? And then now we're in a digital age where money is just numbers on an internet screen. And so then we get to these credit cards and this plastic. And here's this, I don't know, you can think about it as scary if you want, but these financial institutions have done studies to register how much brain activity you have when you make these different types of transactions: cash, check, credit card. So it's no wonder that what you're starting to see now is you don't even have to swipe something or insert a card. Now you just wave your phone, or you tap your phone, and you just have this waving motion of your phone doesn't register as much in your brain as actually swiping the credit card, which is why you're seeing that transition happen now.
I can understand that.
They want to be able to extract the money from you without you even realizing that you're giving it away, right?
See,
everyone out there in the country wants your money, but they want to make it as easy as possible for you to give it to them so that you don't connect the pain of, oh, remember how hard it was at my job last week? Do I really, all that work I put in, do I really want to spend that on this purchase? Maybe not.
It's so true. My thought as you were talking about this is how things are evolving into Bitcoin or the online currency type of thing. And so there is no connection, like you said, to the hard labor and the work that you've done. And so we take things, but you can see this. It has been evolving into this non-connection level to many, many things, but finance is one of them. We live in an ATM society, which is now evolving into, and I've said this for years, so now I've got to say into the wave society.
Yeah.
So this is a new one for me. I'm really glad that you pointed this out, because now we have graduated, and I've been doing this for a long time and talking about this, and now I've got this new thing I can say. Thank you, Jeff, because it's so funny that you have really pointed that out. We live in a wave society, which means bye-bye. And we can say bye-bye to our money. It's gone. And how do we connect?
Little emotion.
Yeah, and one day no emotion. We have no emotional attachments to things anymore. We don't have emotional attachments even to people, because like you and I, we're on video, and people do this all the time. And there's just nothing, there's no connection that way, because there's no physical. And that's even talking about the physicalness of paper currency. And so we don't connect it. And then one day we look at our bank account on our phone and we go, why isn't there money there?
Yeah.
And we are now seeing a lot of challenges. And I think you would be an expert in seeing the prediction of what's happening with the real estate again and where it's going. And there's a lot of things that if people are not paying attention to, because of how easy our money is slipping through our fingers,
right,
through our phones or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can just tap a button on your phone and use Apple Pay. You know, you don't even have to have the card anymore.
Yes, and so I really like the focus that you have on educating the younger generation, because if we don't, things are slipping through their fingers. Like you said, it's the wave. It's gone. And how do you pursue your dreams when you're not being connected with the right tools to get you there in the society that we live in? And this is really important. And I like what you
challenging. You know,
it is.
And when you think about the attachment and the connection that you're talking about, you know, when you're out there spending cash and you have this physical exchange. Somewhere deep inside of us in this country, we all seem to be wired very well for budgeting. Everybody seems to hate budgeting and think it's this negative 4-letter word. But really, most people in the country are experts. It's magical how good they are at budgeting because they can spend all of their money right down to zero. See, if you and I don't make the same amount of money, but we can both spend it right down to zero. And so everybody in the country, even though they might make different income levels, they're great at spending exactly what they have. And so what happens is when you're on a cash system, you spend what you have, and then when you're out, and you need to get more cash, right? Well, so with the involvement of, credit cards and then now things like Apple Pay where you can just wave, it's like, oh, hey, Rebecca, I want to buy something. I want to buy another thing, and you're not even connecting to the fact that you may or may not have that money.
Yes.
So then what happens is because we're great at spending right down to zero in our checking account or our bank account. So we spend right down to zero, credit card statement shows up, and we act all surprised.
Yes.
Where did it come from? How did it get that high?
Yes.
How am I supposed to pay this? I don't have any cash to pay this.
Yes. And when you started speaking about this, you brought something to mind. I love people and I love learning about how we're wired. And there's something that I learned a long time ago in psychology, and that is there's something called attachment disorder. And that is where when in the early stages of life, if you don't bond with your parent, specifically your mother, there is an attachment disorder and it later causes like behavioral problems and things like that. But you mentioned this attachment, and if we are not attached, or we haven't attached to hard labor and the emotions that are connecting us to money, we have an attachment disorder to money that causes us behavioral problems in our spending. So this is what I was thinking as you were saying this, and a lot of us then are really actually having sort of a crisis in essence overall, because these, and then if you think in terms of long-term habitual things, because we are creatures of habit, right? So we will continue to do as we have done in the past, and we can't get beyond it. And then we go where, like you said, okay, I'm at zero. How did I get here? This should have been here.
Yeah.
Why? What do I do? So I think there are so many solutions that are available. And if we talk to someone who's an expert in this field, such as yourself, who can say, here's the way to do this, that's going to get you where you need to go. This is productive. This is healthy. Take these steps. Provides a way, a pattern, a good look, a good perspective. You're going to do really, really well.
Yes. So I think on the topic of credit cards for your children, set a limit and use it as a tool for education. Teach them about it, help them connect to where the money came from, review the statement with them, make sure that they understand the exchange that's taking place, that there is a physical exchange that affects your physical life when you swipe that credit card, and you need to understand that exchange. I think a very fundamental basic tool that goes back to the detachment disorder, the behavioral issues you're talking about, if there is one thing that I think would change people's lives financially, it would be to automate this financial discipline. And
yes.
The way that you automate financial discipline is you get it out of sight, out of mind. So whatever bank account that you're used to logging in, because we look at our bank accounts far more than any other financial account, more so than any kind of retirement account or other benefit account or any other type of financial account. We don't log in as much. People log in and they look at their bank accounts online far more often. So what you've got to do is get the money out of the bank account so you don't see it. So your subconscious does not kick in and start thinking of all the amazing, wonderful things you could do with that number that just flashed up on the screen.
Yes.
So you've got to get money automated to where when it's coming out of your business or coming out of your paycheck, but maybe before it even gets to your checking account, it goes to some other financial institution, just some other saving account, some other investment account that you don't see, that you're not looking at, that you're not logging into. So it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't care if it's another savings account, just at a different bank. But get it out of that main account, get it out of that main bank that you're working with, that you log into on a regular basis. So you don't see that balance in front of you. And if you can't get it out before it hits the bank, set up an automated withdrawal every time you get paid. I get paid every week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever it is, set it up and get it out of there. And then your natural instinctive ability, I don't know, maybe we learned it from our ancestors because I couldn't trade you more crops than I had, so maybe it's just wired into us that we know not to get rid of more than what we have. So then by automating that discipline, if you end up spending everything in your bank account, you're not totally at a loss because you've got this automated transfer, this automated financial discipline to help overcome that behavioral issue.
Yes, I agree. And your company, and you specifically, work with individuals to help them do this?
So it depends. There's got to be an economy of scale, right?
Okay.
If you're just getting started, you don't need a financial planner. Start with automate your finances, get your savings going, fund your IRAs, do the basics, fund your retirement accounts. You don't need to pay anybody. You just need the discipline. And I'm not a counselor, so I can't fix all the behavioral issues.
Sure.
But once you've got the basics down and you're ready to go to the next level, that's when you reach out to someone like us.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I want to thank you so much for being with me today and with the audience. I think that you've given us a lot of insight. I want to invite you to come back on the show because we have a whole lot more to talk about. This is something that I think really needs to be addressed all the time, our finances. And you have a lot of information and a lot of different directions on which we can acquire a lot of knowledge that is going to benefit us. And I want to make sure that our viewers can get in touch with you and learn more about what you and your Ark Financial Group does so that you can really address some of the specific challenges and hurdles that people face. So if you'll share a little bit of information with our viewers on how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, well, since you're getting into Instagram now, Rebecca, they can find us on Instagram.
I love it.
Find our Ark Financial page on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Like our pages. You can find more information. We're regularly sharing information on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Go out there. You can check out, of course, our website, arkfinancial.com, and find all of our latest blogs or articles. We post up interviews that I do like this so people can hear more of what I had to share.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. I really enjoyed it.
I did too, and I know that the audience did. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to another episode of Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I'm really excited about the information that was shared with you today, and I hope that you are able to acquire some things that are going to inspire you to get excited about your finances instead of looking at it as kind of an downer. So share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and everybody you know on social media. This is an area that we really want to get moving in the right direction. And even if you're already there, we can always learn more and help others.